Right, good afternoon. Ms. Bennett, would you introduce yourself, tell us your name and your DOC number, please?
My name is Dawn Bennett, 477041.
Right, so you're here this afternoon seeking a commutation of your sentence. Before we get started, let me acknowledge the folks who have joined us. In support, we have the Parole Project, Penny Bryant, Barry Bryant, Sabrina Monaco, Beatrice Taylor, Frankie Babin, Karen Copeland, Ashley Posey, Christy Sheremy, and Demetrius. I'm sorry, I always have trouble with that. More. In opposition, we have the district attorney from the 21st Judicial District who will be speaking, Tamika White, Rochelle Griffin, who is here, LaCoya Griffin, also who is here. First, I'll just read some identifying information into the record, ask you to confirm it. Then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marabella because your case has been assigned to him. Okay, he'll take the lead on the interview. So, Ms. Bennett, you were sentenced in January 2004 in the 21st JDC Livingston Parish for second-degree murder, for which you received a life sentence, and armed robbery, you received a 99-year sentence. Those sentences are running concurrently. You were sentenced in January 2004. Is that information correct, Ms. Bennett?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Would you answer Mr. Marabella, please?
Good afternoon, Ms. Bennett. How are you?
I'm okay.
How old are you at this time? How old are you?
I am 47.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
About 21 years.
Let's talk about what happened. Tell me how you got involved in this murder and robbery.
Well, at that time in my life, I didn't really have any form of a life at all, really, to be honest. I basically didn't have a job, couldn't hold down a job. My whole life consisted of doing drugs or being around people doing drugs. And
by my calculations, you were about 26 years old. Is that right?
25.
25, 26, somewhere in that area. Okay. How far had you gone in school?
I had got my GED in I think 91. So I had a GED. I had taken a couple of courses at Southeastern, but I didn't really do very well because I was skipping a lot of class and, just kind of ignorant, pretty ignorant, sir.
When did you start using drugs? You mentioned drugs. When did you start using drugs?
At 18.
What kind of drugs were you using at 18?
I started with marijuana. I think I tried acid, just experimenting. And
how long did you use drugs?
7 years.
And
from 7 years, that just escalated to a downward spiral.
Were you using drugs at the time of this offense?
Not at that moment.
Up until then, I mean, were you a regular drug user at that time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So tell me how it is you came to. I've read the report and I've listened I've seen your statement. So first off, explain to me what your relationship was with Lucretia Simmons and how you got involved with her and how you ended up robbing and killing her, looks like, ex-boyfriend.
Okay. Well, I met her through my cousin, Lucretia Simmons, and we ran for a while, and she became my girlfriend later, okay, off and on. Because sir?
How did you meet her?
Through my cousin, Joette. Yeah.
Y'all did drugs together?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And our relationship was very unstable. It was off and on. And I was out with her that night. And she decided she was going to call him And I really don't know what her intention was. She gave me the gun. So I was under the impression that she wanted to rob him. But I think that because she didn't know I was going to kill him. And I don't even really know if I.
Now, in your written statement, you said that your girlfriend called in and she wanted you to, y'all were going to rob him and you were going to kill him. She wanted you to kill him. Now, is that true? I mean, where did all of that come from?
I don't remember her exactly saying those words. I just kind of implied it by her calling him and giving me the gun.
And what did y'all call? What was the purpose of meeting him? What was the pretense to meet him?
She was going to have a transaction with him.
Were y'all really looking for drugs from him that night?
Yes, sir.
So she called him. You did, in fact, want drugs. You both decided you were going to rob him. And whose idea was it to kill him?
I don't think that she mentioned killing him. I'm the one that killed him, sir.
I understand that. And the record reflects that.
I don't think she knew I was going to do that. And
so let me ask you this. Why did you kill him?
I think that I was really just, I felt like he would retaliate against me. And I felt like he was not going to let that go down. I mean, I don't want to sit and say I panicked because at the end of the day, I did that, you know.
Well, tell me what happened in the transaction. I mean, how did it come about that you pulled a gun? What did you take from him? And what prompted you to kill him so he would not later retaliate against you?
I wasn't inside the car when they were talking, so I really don't know. But at that moment when I decided to do that, I didn't give him a chance. He never knew what was happening. He never knew what had happened at all. I didn't give him a chance because once I pulled the gun out, I started firing.
And what did y'all ultimately get from him?
I never saw it, sir. She had whatever it was in her hand. I know she had some crack cocaine.
And what did y'all do after?
She started screaming, and we went to Holden. That's where we were staying at in Holden. So we went back to Holden.
And she ultimately pled guilty to manslaughter and actually was released at one point, got rearrested, and I think she's back out again. Is that right? To your knowledge, do you know that?
I don't know, sir.
Have you had any contact with her or any relationship with her at all?
No, sir.
Were y'all still together in a relationship at the time of this shooting and killing?
I thought so.
Now, prior to this, I didn't see anything in your record violence. This is the first act of violence that you had. I mean, you had some property crimes and you had a few drug crimes, but never a killing. I mean, what prompted you to kill this man that night? I mean, I heard what you said, but I'm still trying to wrap my brain around why you would kill this guy.
I think I panicked.
Well, I mean, you say you panicked, but she was outside the car. Was he fighting with her or doing her anything like that?
No, she was sitting in the car with the door open.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was at the other car at first. But whenever I walked over there, I walked up on her side. That's when I pulled the gun out. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and blame it on something that they were doing or their relationship. You know, I did suspect that, but.
So you thought they might be trying to get back together?
It's possible.
Well, now that you've been in prison for 21 years and you've had a lot of opportunities in time to think about what happened that night, what are your thoughts about what happened? Can what do you think now happened back then? mean, you may not have known what you were doing back then or can't really explain why you did what you did, but what are your thoughts about what you did back then? What do you think about it?
I think that it was a brutal, senseless act. And there's no defense for it.
Where did you get the gun from?
She gave it to me.
She gave you the gun. You had the gun before? Had you ever had a gun before?
No, sir.
You never owned a weapon, never had a weapon? That was the first time had you ever fired a weapon before?
I think at one time I had maybe a 12 gauge shotgun when I was younger, a little younger.
And you were not doing drugs that day, you said. So you're not going to suggest that you were high or anything like that when it happened?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your honesty. You're being very honest with me. I do appreciate it. Let's talk about what you've done while you've been in prison. And I have read your record, and you've done a lot of substantial things. I'd like to talk about those. Tell me, let's first talk about your drug problem. Can we both agree that you're a drug addict?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Let's talk about what you've done in reference to what sort of programs you've taken or what sort of help you've gotten to deal with your substance abuse issue.
Well, I have taken, the normal routine classes that they offer, like the anger management, substance abuse. I've taken substance abuse a couple of times, but at one time I even had the opportunity to facilitate, and it really wasn't something I was open to. But when I did do it, I don't know, it changed my mind.
Well, let me stop you for a second. When you say substance abuse, are you talking about AA type, the 12 steps, or what sort of substance abuse are you talking about?
I'm talking about living in balance is what I used to facilitate with. But they do kind of go over the 12 steps. But I've also I just started, when I got a date, I started trying to think of things that I could do on the outside, the transition. And I have started. I remember my mother going to AA meetings. And I don't know, for some reason, I had the wrong idea about it. I actually enjoy the NA and the AA. And at first I was saying I didn't need to go to AA, but I realized, yes, I do need to go to AA, because before I started doing drugs, I would sneak around and drink. I don't even think anybody knows I was doing that. But I realized that, yeah, I do need to go to AA. And a lot of times we put rose-colored glasses on about ourselves, but I realized I wasn't being very honest with myself. And I realized that a lot of that too is deciding to self-medicate is because I don't know how to deal with my problems. I don't know how to deal with my own personal issues. And it's been a journey. I'm not going to say I think it's going to be a lifelong journey, so.
What would be your sobriety plan when you got out? Would you continue to go to AA meetings? Is that something that you think you need to continue to do?
Oh, certainly. I would have to. I mean, I'm not as ignorant as I once was. I realized that just because you get out of prison doesn't mean everything's going to be great. Life is stressful anywhere you are, and you have to have a support system. And not only a plan, but you need to have a support system. People, we weren't made for isolation, and that's one of the things I have learned. I used to be so quiet when I first got to LCIW, but I really, one thing I do now is I tend to talk maybe too much, but
you and I get along pretty well.
But But just rein me in if I don't answer your question, okay? If I get out.
You're doing fine. Let's talk a little bit about you've done a lot of work in the faith-based programs. Talk to me a little bit about your work with the New Orleans Baptist College and the things that you've done there.
I love the seminary. It was very emotional because what it does is yes, it is about God, but it's also about you learning yourself. It gives you the tools, honestly, to be able to recognize. Like, I learned a lot about trauma. And when we took the counseling classes and the trauma classes, and I started realizing some things about myself, even here recently in the last couple of years, that I was, you know how they say the nail on the forehead? You know, the most obvious things, sometimes we overlook them, but we try to find the root of some things and we go all around the bush. But the main thing in seminary that I got was I learned to really examine myself.
You mentioned earlier when you were talking about looking at yourself and trying to learn exactly who you were, and is that the sort of thing that's helped you do that?
Yes, sir.
Now, I understand that you are also a tutor. Talk to me about your instructional work and number one, what you do, and number two, what you get out of what you do.
Well, I've always wanted to learn how to weld, maybe because my stepfather was a welder, and that's how I learned how to iron, was ironing his shirts. And I like working with my hands. I also enjoyed working in maintenance too for a while. I got the privilege of coming here whenever we first evacuated. We came here, I was in the first 54. I didn't think that I would be coming here because I just assumed I had it all figured out, and the long-termers would go to hunt and the short people would come here and get this place ready. But they pulled us immediately to start welding and stuff like that. And that was actually, we evacuated right whenever I became a tutor. So we had a class at that time, and I feel like it's a privilege to have, first of all, have some program like welding, because it is traditionally dominated by men. And I like the fact that a woman, I'm imparting something to them that is going to make them successful. You know, they got ladies in my class right now that they don't have family. They don't have anybody out there to support them, you know, whenever they do go home. And that's why I keep trying to just hammer things into them as much as I can. I mean, I've learned so much just through growing up. And it's something that you have to purposely do, because if you don't purposely choose to grow and to pass on what you know, and in here, of course, we have things where people compete for jobs and this and that or whatever. But to me, I feel like it's a privilege to get to be in there helping people to be successful.
Let's talk about a little different subject. What have you, if any, thought have you given to the family of Mr. Griffin for what happened to you?
Yes, I have thought. I took a woman, her husband, from her, and I took these children. I took their father from them. I mean, he left and then he never came back. And I don't have no defense for it.
What I understand you're a member of the JCs as well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You're a member of the JCs?
Yes, sir. But we had to break from the charter because they kept writing and wanting to get money and money and money, but we still do the same things, but we changed our name to the Jazzy Jays, but it is still the same thing.
Now, my notes reflect, you also have your paralegal certificate?
Yes, sir.
Well, you worked on a lot of things while you've been in. What do you think is the thing that has, and you have really explained a lot of what you've done. So just tell me what you think is maybe the most important thing you've been able to accomplish while you've been in prison.
Well, I used to think, I would probably say seminary. I would say, but I really think that it's the opportunities that I have, like with, I don't know if you know or familiar with Kairos or just like NA and AA, where you have groups, small groups. I just feel like being in one and being accountable to people and being open with people. I just feel like that. I was so quiet when I first got to LCIW. So I had to learn through things like the JCs and all that. And I had to break out slowly, you know. But now I'm the one that reins them in, you know. So I think that for me, learning to be that person, to love me.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your transition plan. I see Mr. Myers is here with Louisiana Parole Project. Tell me what your plan would be, assuming you get some relief and you get out soon.
Well, I've been accepted by the Louisiana Parole Project, and that's what they specialize in, is people like me and people that have been down for a long time and I mean, truthfully, everything will be a new experience for me because I never knew how to function, you know. So I am going to just entrust myself to them so that they can teach me everything I need to know.
And that's perhaps long term, but that's temporary. What would you do after that? What are your hopes and thoughts after that?
Well, I have a lot of family support. You know, I want to go and start putting first of all, I look at my mother too. That's another victim of mine because I'm not there. And I have a 70-something-year-old woman supporting me. And that right there, I mean, if there's something okay with that, there should be, you know, I have a problem with that. And it should be me trying to take care of my family and help them and trying to help other people like me. I want to be able to tell my story, and I want to utilize some of my skills that I've learned. I want to put them to good use, and I want to try to be even better. I don't want to stop what I've been doing, though. I really would like to go to some more school too, to be honest.
You're very young. I can tell you 47 is very young. You've got a lot of years. You've got a lot more to be able to do. Warden, what can you tell us about Ms. Bennett?
Yes, John is minimum custody, and like we kind of laughed before, she sometimes talks too much, but that's a good thing because that's why we have her as a tutor. So she's a very good instructor. She's very useful to us when it comes to welding instruction and heavy equipment instruction. And she really does fight for her students, which is great for us, that we can see that she really wants the students that are in her classes to succeed as well. So I think that's something she probably wouldn't say because she doesn't, see that as something being important. She knows that's part of her job, but she really takes some ownership in that. And and she really has a great disciplinary record. No issues on that end. And like she mentioned with parole project, but I know Mr. Myers is on as well if you guys have any other follow-up questions on that end.
Thank you, Warden. I appreciate your comments. Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I made a note, Ms. Bennett, after I reviewed your record. It says, and it's read the letter. You sent us a letter. It says her letter shows she was living wild, pillow to post, drugs, no stability. Was that an accurate assessment?
Ma'am?
Was that an accurate assessment?
Oh, of me at home? When I was at home?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just wanted to check. We'll hear from the folks who want to speak on your behalf. We have here with us Frankie Babin, who'd like to speak.
Okay.
Yes. That's good.
Okay, Dawn got in my class. She started welding, and the way the welding system works, when you graduate, you got a chance to be a tutor. Well, she graduated from BRCC. That was who I was working for, and it's the same welding program we had in everywhere. She can weld anything. So she got to be a tutor, made her a tutor, and she was the one I kind of picked on because she could do projects. You're not just teaching welding; you are teaching students welding, but you got projects in prison and all kind of projects. So I would get her to do projects with somebody else if I could trust her. Okay, and so work ethic really good. And I even told her sometimes, Dawn, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pick you, but I can trust you. So and today the RCC has left the prison cell, but she stayed there and she's still to who else? She got very good. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Parole project, Carrie.
Good afternoon, Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. Ms. Bennett is maybe one of the most self-reflective people I've ever come across. And you can see that she's done a lot of that. In addition to that, she's done a lot. She's accomplished a lot during her incarceration, not only just in the classes, but the way she serves other people. We understand that we may and we are prepared to take Ms. Bennett as a long-term client to make sure that she has the stability. We know she's employable. We're going to make sure she has, through our social worker, the proper evaluations for substance abuse, follow any recommendations. Our case managers will make sure that she follows any recommendations that come from that. But I have no doubt that it's something that she's going to want to do, which is the key to all recovery. You have to want to do it. And there's no question in my mind that she's committed to that. So I just want to let this board know that Parole Project is here to support Ms. Bennett for the long term if necessary. We will help her find employment. We will help her develop those social skills that she needs after the time during her incarceration, and to basically just to get her life back step by step. And that's what we know, and that's what our program does. And so I'd ask this board to consider Ms. Bennett today favorably and grant her commutation.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll hear from the opposition. We have LaCoya Griffin, the victim's niece, who wants to speak. Ms. Griffin.
Imagine being an 8-year-old and you hear the only person that was a father figure in your life is never coming back. The first funeral you attend is his funeral. You don't understand why he's not waking up, why he just laying there, why I'm never gonna talk to him again. I couldn't ask the questions at home because they're not ready to talk about it. That's my mom's only brother. They can't there. Her mother was killed, domestic violence. It was only them two. So being young and only having each other, she wasn't ready. So an 8-year-old don't know why her uncle is never coming back. Then we go into, I'm listening to everything today. I don't see no remorse. I didn't hear a sorry to the family, not one time. I heard he left a wife and his stepkids. He didn't have biological kids. So that is the place I took all the promises I told him I'm going to make it. And I hear we cheering on her accomplishments. Congratulations. But I got to go talk to a headstone about mine. As I finish my master's program for social work, because I see the struggles my mama going through with not wanting to talk, can't get out her feelings. So I figured I'm going to help the people who like her that won't talk. She's not going to talk to me because I'm her daughter. So I'll keep kind of pushing. She having a hard time now. I try to push. I told her we're going to go do family therapy. I'm trying. The same way we go through all that, the things that's going on, it's taking a toll on. My mom take 2 to 3 anxiety pills a day just to get through. The anxiety pills at night has to be stronger so she can sleep through the night. Losing a mother and your brother to gun violence, all she has is 3 kids. We have no other family members. So all she has is us and her 3 kids. My youngest sister just made 17 Friday. And my brother is 26, I'm 27, I'm 28. Every time we leave, she feels her kids are going to, she's going to get a call, gun violence. So she tried to keep us sheltered. She tried to keep us sheltered into her eyesight. And I tell her, we have to go learn, we have to go look. But then I look and then I heard the story, you know, what happened. I knew my uncle wasn't hurting nobody. He never hurt nobody. I mean, he's a Navy veteran, so if he would know if he wanted to hurt somebody. So all I heard was you just walked up there and you just shot him. For what? She had the drugs in her hand and she wanted them. So what was the reason to just leave them there dead? You didn't hear no screaming from the car. You didn't hear no fighting from the car. You just walked there and you saw them. They still talking. They had a conversation. It was nothing. So I couldn't say he was buying the drugs. He gave it to you. And then intent, you was going to rob him for it. But he gave it to you. That's the type of person he was. He would give you the shirt off his back. He would do anything anybody asked him to do. And I can remember like it was yesterday. I was on the 8th. But I just remember her getting that phone call and she stormed out of there. And everybody was just so hurt when she came back and nobody would tell me what was going on. And to this day, I'm just not hearing the story. She didn't do anything. And I'm just like, so what was it? Why would you kill an innocent person who didn't do you nothing? So I'm just like, as I graduated high school, I graduated college. I'm going to graduate again next year. I only have my mom and my siblings to congratulate me. I don't have, everybody sitting here, you did this, you did. I have my mom and my siblings. But when I have to go to that cemetery, and I'm talking to a headstone. This is what I did it for you. Because you gave me no promises. If I go, I'll reach for the stars. Do whatever you know you can do. And that's what I do. I do it for him. So I just don't feel like when they went through this case and we're putting the blame on this one and we're putting the blame on that one, they both took part in it. The other person did her time, but her sentence was the life in the 99. And I just don't, with us still being in that same area, even when I'm moving to Baker, so you come out and you come to Baton Rouge Parish, I hope to move and get a job in social work in Baton Rouge Parish. I would hate to have to turn down the case for stuff like that. And then Livingston Parish, this is where this took place. That's right there at the St. Helena Parish. My mom's still working in Livingston Parish. She worked in Little Springs. She would hate to walk into a Walmart and still have to see the person who took everything she had. We just don't agree with it. That's all.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. I think the district attorney wants to speak, Mr. Farrelly. I see it.
Good afternoon. I'm Tamika White. I'm the Victims Advocate Coordinator. Mr. Perilou was prepared to speak, but he was called away on a case in court. So he was just in opposition, and we agree with the victim's family that Ms. Bennett should not be released.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. All right. At this time, Ms. Bennett, is there a statement you'd like to make before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. That everything that young lady said, though, she was right. And she was absolutely right. And I've been learning a lot about that in that victim impact class. And I apologize. I'm sorry if I come off as not being remorseful to their family and those children, you know. And I'm only asking for grace and mercy, and I'm not trying to say I deserve it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mirabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to thank everyone who spoke today, especially the young lady who spoke. I do appreciate the comments that you made. You should be very proud of your accomplishments. It was a senseless killing. There's, even after we talked today, it didn't make sense why it happened. But all of the crimes that we have that come before us oftentimes are senseless. And that's one of the things that we look at when we make the determination. One of the roles of the parole board, of the pardon board, is to look at the person who now sits before us, not necessarily the person who was the person who committed this crime. As I sit here today and hear you talk about who you were, very honestly to us about who you were and who you've become and how you've become that person and why you've become that person. It seems to me that you really have benefited from your time in prison. You have learned to trade. You have learned how to deal with your substance abuse. You have a plan to stay sober when you get out. You continue while you're in prison to help your fellow inmates. Good comments from the warden. You've got a new life in your faith-based programs. You've got a good disciplinary record. You've got a good transition plan with the Louisiana Parole Project. You do have opposition. There's nothing you can do about that. Law enforcement opposition as well as the victim's opposition. And I understand that. And I know where they come from. I understand that. But based upon all of the work that you've done, I vote today would be to recommend to the governor that he commute your sentence to 42 years. That would be my vote. One of 4. So, Madam Chairman, that would be my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Your story is very enlightening. You have learned a lot in prison. And there's also victims in this matter that will, they'll never get their uncle back or their brother back. But the bottom line is, I do think you're not a threat to society, and my vote's also the community sentence for 3 years.
Yes, Mrs. Jackson.
First, I do want to thank everyone who participated in the hearing. I appreciate you being here, and I listened to what you had to say. But I agree with my colleagues. I believe Ms. Bennett has demonstrated that she no longer poses a risk to society, and she's accomplished a lot. And so my vote today would be to grant a commutation for 42 years.
Thank you. I do agree. I think you've come a long way. I don't think you're the same person who entered prison over 20 years ago. I'm impressed by your community service work that you do among your communities. So my vote is the same. My vote would be to make the recommendation that your sentence be commuted to 42 years. Good luck to you.
Thank you.